everybody. Welcome to episode 70 of the Corner Blue. I'm Hugo Alvarado, and I'm here with Andres Rico. And here we are, finally, at last. La Selecta won, and we are here to talk about the game, celebrate if you feel like celebrating, unless you're pessimistic and you don't want to celebrate. But here we are. We're going to talk about the game. Andres, did you have an opportunity to watch?
Yes, sir. Seppo, good to see you again. Definitely feeling that relief that the winless streak is over. Finally got the first dub in the new campaign. But yeah, we'll be breaking that down shortly. But yeah, more than anything, just relief at this point. And also glad to see, see how things worked out. I was glad to see the way that they panned out and that there wasn't a second disaster on the second match day.
Yes, definitely. I'll dive right in. I'm going to start with my emotions, how my emotions were on that game, instead of not focusing on any of what happened in the game. I got to watch the game mostly just with my oldest son. Well, he was doing something else, but I was watching. And, started pretty pumped up. First half, we scored the goal. I was pretty happy about it. And then we kind of, started to lose the ball. And then some Vincent started attacking and they scored that goal. So I went to the first half, with that feeling of like, we have 45 minutes left. That could very well be the end of our 2026 World Cup qualifiers. And then when the second goal came, I don't know if I haven't felt that emotional in a very long time. Honestly, I felt a little teary when we scored the second goal, because it was like, I knew there was a lot of time left and anything could happen, but it was like a big relief when we scored that second goal, and obviously when we scored the third one, that was it. I just I guess to summarize it is relief. That was happy, but mostly relief that we had gained an entire year to play the Nations League, to play some friendly matches, and to be able to build a more cohesive team that can better understand what David Doniga is trying to implement.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was on the verge of tears out of joy. I I would say that with the second goal, that's like how could I put it? The most anticlimactic goal, like at least celebration wise from my end, where I was like dead inside up until that moment. I'm like, all right, finally. It was when I was like, okay, all right. But albeit always with that looming sense of doom, so weary of it. Once Bonilla hit the third one in, that's when all right, they did it. That's when I felt that relief where it's like, okay, there's that cushion. It's almost the end of the game. Now now there's time to relax. If some weird shit happens, there's only 7 minutes left and they have to score two. I mean, stranger things have happened, but that's when I was confident that they were gonna win the game. And um I think more than anything, yeah, just the clean slate feeling that I have, at least, that Donny has had to hit the ground running since January. Here we are in June. He's got his first two qualifiers under his belt that just came up on him like this. 4 points out of six. Ideally, you'd want the six, but getting a win away in the Caribbean, you can't minimize that. So I think if anything, just walking away from the first window with the 4 points, I think it's the right step in the right direction that, it wasn't guaranteed because we've played in Suriname, we've had awful games in Suriname. Um, albeit against Suriname, right? And other foes. But going to the Caribbean, there's always these variables of logistics messing things up, internal stuff that's come up. And then you see it reflected on the pitch. I think this time around they got out with the 3 points, and we'll see how things pan out the next couple of months with Nations League. But all right, you did the early work, you reaped what you sowed, 4 points. Now we move on.
Right. The Caribbean has always been a complicated place for us. Always. I can't remember the last time that we scored more than 4 goals in the Caribbean. I really can't. In the Caribbean, I know that at home we have scored more against Caribbean teams, but Caribbean teams are not easy. And I mean, even if you look at Panama yesterday at home against Guyana, they only won 2-0. So the Caribbean teams are not easy teams. And again, don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm throwing a party at home. It's not like I was partying all night out of
Should
joy.
have been.
Not at all. Nor am I saying that that things are great now and we're ready to go to the World Cup. However, as a Salvadorian fan, I can't. I understand you have to be critic sometimes, but how could you not at least be pleased that you ended with the winless streak? 22 games, 2 years of not winning, 2 years where we couldn't beat Nicaragua, Bonaire, and other smaller teams.
Martinique.
Martinique. I mean, as fans, we start to go into that place where we start doubting, whether our national team is where we think they should be.
Well, things are going wrong when that Twitter account for San Marino starts shitting on a Selecta. That's when things are going bad. But
they started shitting on Mexico a couple days ago. So
they're starting shit with everybody, but yeah.
Yeah. But just ending with that, and so where I was going, if as fans we start, having our doubts about, I'm not saying that we're one of the best teams in CONCACAF, but we went to the last octagonal, so we were there fighting with the top 8 teams. And imagine if we feel that pressure as fans, just imagine what the players are feeling every time they step on the pitch, knowing that it could be the 23rd game without winning and all that pressure. So I'm just happy that I'm hoping that now for the players as well, this could be a turning point. Similar to the turning point that we had back in 2009 when we beat Panama, when everybody thought that we were out. So that's what I'm happy about. I'm happy that, well, first of all, I get to continue hoping and dreaming that La Selecta can move on to the next round, and that we have gained an entire year where hopefully if things don't go crazy like they usually go down in El Salvador, the coaching staff can have a whole year to prepare the team.
Yeah, and that's not even taking into account, looming changes administratively in with the regularizadora and how that will pan out and how long they will be here or not here, how the elections will go, and what ultimately the new board will decide to do. In typical Selecta style, one step forward, and then there's always potential for many steps back. So I think if anything that this team needs for the upcoming year is stability. And I know that's something that's very counterintuitive, very almost like a utopic idea in terms of La Selecta, but literally it's stability. It's okay, the only guy had to do a very quick pace, very fast casting in about 5+ months. And I think for the first time ever, we saw uh we saw a team that found itself in the midfield. I think there were parts of the game where we were relying too much on centering the ball when the air game is not our forte. But I think there were several sequences throughout the game, and I'd say especially in the second half, where you started seeing El Salvador play the style that favors it, especially against a Caribbean team or smaller teams, is possession, construction, playing off of everyone, basically getting everyone involved and getting into that final third where you're not just sitting a long ball, a Hail Mary, or a cross from the corner and hoping that miraculously a guy that's 5 something is able to soar in the air between 6 foot, 6 feet guys and score. So I think that is the main relief that I get is seeing something close to what I wish we would see on a regular basis, especially the last 2 years. Seeing that on the pitch was something that was refreshing. There's still a lot of work to do, but there was no better feeling than seeing players play off of each other, moving into space, creating, being constructive, possessing the ball, but knowing what they were going to do before they received it, playing with some sort of idea. And I feel like we've been lacking that, especially during this winless streak.
I was exchanging some messages with Pablo, and I was congratulating him because I think that Pablo went in and changed the game. I think that he reminded me of the Pablo that we saw back with Albert Roca. In my opinion, that was the best I've seen of Pablo.
A throwback version of Pablo for sure.
Yeah, and I really enjoy seeing that because he started managing the pace of the game, even getting a little fancy with the ball at times. And I was congratulating him about it, and he said something interesting. He said we started having fun with the ball. We started enjoying playing our game, and I think that that's something that we got to see a glimpse of it, especially after we scored the second goal. That's what I'm talking about when I said that for the players, it was also a relief. And I think that after the second goal, they started believing in themselves again, and we started seeing, more, yeah, more combinations, those type of combinations that we want to see in the final third. We started seeing more of that. Of course, there's room for improvement. A lot of the crosses were not very good. Also, I'm glad that Bonilla scored. Bonilla gets a lot of shit from a lot of fans, and even people saying the ball bounced on him, and like there's always this need to try to find some negativity, and I'm like, all right, the ball bounced on him. Let's say that, but you have to know how to make the right movements in front of the defenders to put yourself in a position where that ball is going to bounce on you, and that's not something that any player can do. So congratulations to Bonilla on scoring that goal. But yes, I think that during a lot of parts of the game, we got to see some things that at least makes me believe that with more work, this team can improve moving forward.
Yeah, glimpses. I won't say that it was a perfect game, far from it. Doniga started off with, trying things out in the final third with Tejada and Castillo starting and then putting Jairo behind them. I think, that's something that we haven't seen up until this point. Jairo has been more of a winger throughout the last couple of years. It was interesting to see him more in a role where he had to touch the ball more, where he had to be more involved with possession and constructing plays. And you could see that there was that intent, at least, of Tejada playing off of Castillo and playing off of Jairo, which ultimately ended up in the first goal. And that's something that, again, they need to continue with, and it's something that we haven't seen in a while. Is small touches right outside the box, small touches inside the box, getting defenders off balance, the goalkeeper off balance, and scoring. Jairo had a wonderful shot off of a touch from Tejada, if I'm not mistaken, and he goes to second post. Like, just being effective on the ball, creating space. That's something that we haven't been able to do in the attacking third because we have such a hard time playing out the back. We're so disjointed that for the most part, the style has been trying to run down the lines, and then seeing what happens. Well, we can't speculate anymore. It has to be possessions have to be constructive. You need to make the transitions quicker. And I think if this is like the baby version of where things are going, I think it's positive. I'm glad Doniga was able to tweak his lineup. We saw a more offensive lineup against St. Vincent than we did it against Puerto Rico. Against Puerto Rico, I truly did not understand why we didn't have a creative midfielder to try and feed our forwards. The forwards, the top two, were just completely disconnected from the rest of the team. The defense seemed really disconnected from the midfield, and the midfield just seemed all over the place. So I'm glad there was that tweak in the lineup of trying to at least put players on top that were going to play off of each other. But I think the main thing that stands out, and we spoke about this earlier, were the subs and who was on the pitch at the end of the game and the game management that came not only, from the bench, but that you saw in the game with those subs. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that unlike other games where sometimes you don't really get to see much of a change with the subs, I think that this time the subs were on point, beginning with Punyet, Climaco going out, and I don't think Climaco went out for performance reasons. I think Climaco did his job, I think, in my opinion. But he was sacrificed in the second game because he had a yellow card, and also that's a sub that we see commonly, that you have a player like Cristian Martinez who can play in the center back position as well as the defensive midfield position. But bringing in Punyet, we noticed that we started controlling more of the game. Then Seren came in, and Seren, as soon as he came in, he was actually the one who started the play that ended with the third goal, I believe. No, with the second goal. And so I think that the subs this time, they all contributed to the team getting the result and maintaining the result. Perhaps Joaquin Rivas didn't really have much time to do much, but I think this time around, I really think the substitutions worked in our favor, and it was quite interesting to see that we ended the final 20-30 minutes of the game with a lot of the veterans, of the experienced players on the field, with Bonilla, with Seren, Punyet, Joaquin, Tamacas. So guys that know how to manage those situations a little better than the youngsters. So I think the subs worked this time, and I think the guys who played as starters also did. I think they did their job. I like some of the things I saw from Francis Tejada. He scored a goal, his debut. I think he did well as well. However, there were the two of them are players that are not like area players, like number nines. Like Bonilla was the only one we had because Brian didn't go because of injury. But yes, substitutions were on point in my opinion.
Yeah, it's rare that you see a Salvadoran squad almost get better as the game continues. Usually we start really strong and tend to fade away for what fitness reasons, whatever you want to call it. But it was good to see that opposite of seeing the team manage the situation. You saw even with like the second goal before the subs, you saw the celebration of Tejada with the subs that are warming up. You see some chemistry going on. You saw, and then shortly after, a bunch of those guys that were celebrating get on the pitch and then they get their goal while they're on the pitch. Same thing, celebrating with whoever's on the bench. And I think that chemistry, it leads you to think, all right, some of these guys are starting to get to know their roles, whether it's going to be coming off the bench or starting or rotations, whatever the manager has in mind. It seems that at that point there's some level of harmony where people are buying in to what's going on. And hopefully that continues. It's something that hopefully is sustainable because it's going to be vital to the games coming up. It's going to be vital to getting through the friendlies this summer, Nations League, and then ultimately restarting qualifiers next year.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. There's some guys on that team that are experienced players and they know how to create a good harmony within the team. With Punyet being one of them, Bonilla being another one, and I will never get tired of saying this. And Punyet said it recently in an interview. He said that when he doesn't get called to the national team, he becomes another fan. And he has always supported La Selecta. One of the few players who always supports the team
When he's not there.
no matter what. Unlike, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but sometimes you get to see it. Unlike other players where they don't get called, they don't even show any form of support on social media. Now, it does not mean that you have to post everything on social media, but I do think that there is a level of respect that is gained by a player who's with the team, regardless of whether he's on the squad or whether he believes that he might not ever get called again. He's there supporting the team. And when that player finally gets an opportunity to be in there, I think he sets an example for the rest of the players, and that creates a cohesiveness, and it creates good fellowship, and you always want to have a team that where there's always egos, but where at least the majority of the team get along and everybody has one purpose.
Yeah, you have to buy into the idea. It's interesting because obviously with the national team, things are so fluid. It's not like with a professional or a club where in theory you're going to be with the same group of guys in theory, right? There's always these variables, but for a whole season. And but with the national team, that could change, in any moment, window to window. And it will be interesting down the line to ask, some of the guys, especially Pablo, like, what do you do? How do you, what's the mentality during these situations where, you know, you may not get called up? How do you stay ready? And I think that would be a very interesting topic to hold because we've seen other players that, you know, deal with it in a different way, very public and sometimes negative way. Um, and yeah, I'm just thinking about posts that involve, like seven medals and stuff like that. But in any case, I think with this second game, you saw a team that was, I'd say, less nervous and playing more calm and cool and collected. The game against Puerto Rico started with very high intensity, to the point that there were a lot of reckless challenges throughout the game that, people could have easily been carded or double yellowed or red carded. And fortunately, that did not happen. Um, with St. Vincent, that wasn't necessary. The mind games, at least, on watching it on TV, you didn't see that same type of uh mentality or physicality coming from the players. So, different teams require different tactics. I don't know if that's something that they all talked about prior to the Puerto Rico game, but that I was surprised of that intimidation factor it seemed that they were trying to impose on the game that ultimately I think it pissed the Boricuas off a little bit, and I think that kind of motivated them to show us up a little bit because there were a lot of slide tackles that were late, or you could even interpret them whether they were mala leche or not. Um, but I'm glad things cleaned up in that sense defensively against St. Vincent, and 4 points, man. It's not perfect, but it's close to it.
Look, man, I'm not a big fan of playing too physical, too rough.
Lisa Naya style.
Yeah, not Luis Anaya style. I'm not a big fan of it. However, there's one thing I have to point out, and this is where I don't understand some. This is where sometimes I think that there are some people out there with bad intent with their comments. In the last 14 years since I've been involved, there's always this thing about que póngale huevo, que jueguen con huevo. Like if that's all you need, right? And or the so-and-so who wasn't born in El Salvador, they don't play with heart. And then you get Cristian Martinez playing with huevos from the beginning, and I'm hearing part of the media criticizing him, like what's going on in his mind that he came out like that. And I'm not promoting that type of game, but those players are necessary sometimes. And I know that Christian is a leader. But those are the things that I don't understand. Or here's the other one. Hugo Perez's team style, play from the back, right? Always play from the back. We made a lot of mistakes playing from the back. But, that was the style, and he wanted to perfect that, and the team was expected to do that. Criticism from the media. Sometimes you just have to blast it off, and you just have to throw it to the top. Now, against Puerto Rico especially, we saw a lot of that.
Unfortunately.
And again, I'm not saying that I like that. I didn't. However, then there's the criticism about why don't you just play from the back and you have to throw. So I don't understand. It's like if the team had not shown, yes, the game against Puerto Rico was not a good game. It's just in my opinion, it was not a good game.
Very forgettable.
But at least some may say, but you could see that they were playing with balls, however you want to say, I don't care. Or if the team hadn't done that and we would have played the same, then people would have been like, it seems like they didn't want to play or they don't feel the color. So sometimes I just don't know. Obviously, part of that is the stress that the players were feeling. I just want to find a good analogy. I can't really, I could find some for myself maybe in some of my life experiences, but imagine if you own a business, right? And let's say you had a somewhat successful business and suddenly your business is not doing so well. And unless, like you try to make a sell to survive, and that sell is not happening, and then you start feeling the pressure that at some point you're going to go bankrupt, and you're not going to be able to pay your bills, and it seems like the harder you try to get out of that, the deeper the hole gets. And suddenly you make a sell, right, that will keep your business going for another year. Just think of how big of a relief that is. So if people can see it that way and see why the importance of winning finally, um, it's anyways, going back to the what people were saying, what some were saying about Cristian Martinez, there's frustration. Even in life, if things are not going well, you get frustrated. You can't help it, and sometimes you end up doing things like that. But it could just be part of the pressure that the team was feeling. And again, I support a little bit of that because I think that in certain positions of the pitch, uh, some players required to have a little bit of that attitude. Center backs being some of them, defensive midfielders being others.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you need to. We don't know exactly what the interactions were too. What the Puerto Rican players were saying, who instigated what. Um, the thing I was concerned though was just, some of the late tackles or reckless tackles near the box that either could have cost us a free kick goal or a card.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, no, you saw that there was fight in the Puerto Ricans as well, and I think they instead of being intimidated, it kind of fired them up. And then
Yeah.
ironically, the number six, the one that was in everyone's face and talking hella smack to everybody, he's the one that ends up injured and out of the game on that. It would have been a pretty hard tackle on Heidel. I'm not, I can't analyze the play, frame by frame, but in real time, it looked like Heidel kind of like jumped up in the air expecting the tackle and kind of left his right foot almost to like screen the incoming tackle. Um, but that guy was going in full speed. So, I mean, I think when I saw it in full time, I was almost worried more for Heidel than the other guy. And then obviously you see it in slow-mo and you see that there is contact with the spikes. I mean, who am I to judge? In slow-mo, everything can be interpreted in many ways. Um,
Or it was an unfortunate play. I
yeah,
haven't heard what happened to that guy,
yeah, me
but it was
neither.
unfortunate. I don't think you ever, no matter where you're from or what, I'm not going to defend any action, and I'm not going to accuse Haido again. I just can't. Is it clear that he went with bad intent? It's not clear to me, honestly. But it's unfortunate that every time a player gets a bad injury, it's an unfortunate
Yeah,
situation.
it was a hard tackle. So I think it was either kind of reflexive, you could interpret it that way on Heido's part. But yeah, the guy was coming in fast, and unfortunately for him, he took the worst end of it. Um, I think we should keep it pretty short. But it has been, like we've mentioned, that relief of water under the bridge. Like this losing streak or winless streak had heavy casualties. It caused a huge ruckus um along the way. Three different coaches, during this time. The streak is over. And I think if anything we can walk away from is hopefully there's this level of game management, this level of harmony and just working on the buildup, just being sound on the buildup and constructing your plays rather than what we saw during this window, the pelotazos, the centros to nobody. Like our game is on the ground, our game is passing and moving into space, receiving the ball, breaking the lines with the dribble. We need to be picaros but smart too. And hearing what you said from Pablo that they started having fun, that's going to be the key element. That is the key element is having fun throughout this all. Because not winning for 23 games, can't even imagine as a player. Like that's just not fun. And a player like Martinez, who was brought in late in the qualifying campaign, who struggled to find, a starting spot on this team, and for him to be the face of the team right after the last qualifying campaign that's had to go through all the defeats and all the debacles, you're rooting for the survivors of the Hugo Perez era that finally got that long needed dub. but I think there's nothing better than seeing some vets coming back in to reinforce this team. And the result, the second half performance, is a reflection of that. All right, and coming up, well, we have what the friendly match against Peru. What games do we have to look forward to this summer or for the rest of the year?
Well, there's the Peru game on Friday, and then we have. I mean, I think there's gonna be some other friendly games, but there's Nations League. That's September. Uh, September we have Nations League. September, October, November there's Nations League. And I don't have the schedule in front of me,
Yeah, let me
but
look real quick.
a Nations League. But yes, so here I have them now. So we're playing. So we have the Peru game. Sorry, so we have Peru on the 14th of June, and then we have Guatemala on July 27th here in LA. So if
Friendly
any of you
matches.
are going to the game, I'll be there. I'll see you there. The Dignity Health Sports Park, the Galaxy Stadium. That's where the game is taking place. So then after the Guatemala game, then we start September 5th. We play against Montserrat. I don't know where that game is taking place. I heard that they may not. There might be a single venue for the games. I'm thinking for the Caribbean games. I think we're gonna play at home for our home games, and then on the 8th we play against Bonaire. La revancha del año, and then and then on October we play St. Vincent again.
Speaking of revanchas,
Yeah, October 10th in St. Vincent or wherever that game is played, and then 3 days later we play in San Salvador against St. Vincent one more time, and then we go all the way to November. We play Bonaire in Bonaire, November 14th. November 17th, we play Montserrat again, and then that will be the last game, at least the last official match for 2024, unless there's a friendly match later in November or a friendly match in December. And then there's no games until the next qualifiers, official games, June 7th, 2025 against Anguilla. And we finish at home against Suriname on June 10th. And Puerto Rico is playing tomorrow. So we're recording on Monday today. Puerto Rico is playing on Tuesday against Anguilla. So that game is, we think that Puerto Rico is going to win, but I'm open for a big surprise of like a draw or something like that, which will be amazing for us if that happens. And then I think that will be the end of the first round of the qualifiers for this year.
So with the exception to the summer friendlies, it's Caribe time. So hopefully logistics are handled in the proper manner to close out the year. And I think, I mean, from my perspective, the only unfortunate part about closing out with so many matches in the Caribbean is, you kind of want to see how you're faring against teams, above you ranking wise, or that will challenge you in different ways than Caribbean teams will. But albeit it's official match days, it's for, trying to qualify it's to League A basically of Nations League, if I'm not mistaken, right?
League A and Gold Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's stuff at hand to compete for, and why not? Why not get all these matches under your belt, work on that cohesiveness, and see if we can cruise into next June. But yeah, imagine
Friendly
if
matches will be key. Finding good friendly matches. Unfortunately, most FIFA windows are taken by the Nations League. So we know that it's going to be a similar situation to Peru on Friday, where I think the guys like Puñet and Fuentes and other players will not be able to be there because it's outside of the FIFA window. Fortunately, guys like Cristian Martinez and maybe Climaco, who are their teams are in preseason at the moment, they might be able to stay. But guys who are competing in Europe, which right now is just Puñet and Fuentes, won't be able to go. Probably that will be the case with some of the USL players, unless their teams give them a special permission to go play those games outside of the FIFA windows.
Yeah, and I think that will be part of the main challenges. Do you go and seek these friendly matches outside of the windows? You know, with some of the many complications that come with trying to get the players loaned out from the Liga Nacional. Like, is it worth the effort? And who are you going to take? Who are you going to play with? I think that's a huge question. But that calendar is pretty full for the next 6 months, come August. So, you know, we'll be talking about those matches along the way. And you know, we'll be checking in with some of the matches during summertime, and if any news comes out, we'll definitely be covering it. And along the way, always seeking guests. I know that's been kind of the challenge the last year, but we'll keep at it. And in any case, we'll close out with that. Thanks again for commiserating during the Puerto Rico match, and then thanks to everyone for reaching out during the last match against St. Vincent and Grenadines. And you know, we'll just take it from here. You know, the streak's over, 4 points in the bag for qualifiers, an interesting friendly with Peru, and then head into the final quarter of the year and see how we do in Nations League. So with that, just remember, you can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. We're always on Instagram or Twitter. You always find us at the CornerBlue. Thanks again. Have a good one. Now you can breathe a little bit better, or have a little more time to process, get that blood pressure down, move on with your life for a little bit till it's time to put that blue kit on, because it's the only one we got. And yeah, just remember, this kit chose me. All right, we'll see you guys later.